The prairie was wide and endless. A sea of faded gold stretched beneath the bruised sky of dusk, where the last light burned like a wounded ember, sinking into the ridges. The air carried dust and silence, a silence that held the weight of sorrow and stories untold. Out of that vast stillness came two small figures, stumbling as if the land itself resisted their tiny feet. A boy no older than 4, his shirt torn and face streaked with dirt, clung to the hand of his sister, a girl barely 5. Their eyes were swollen with tears, yet fierce with the determination of children who knew fear too early. They approached a lonely cabin. Its wood darkened by years of sun and storms, smoke trailing faintly from its chimney like a whisper of life still holding on. Inside that cabin sat a man shaped by silence and solitude, his frame strong, but his eyes bearing the quiet ache of years alone. Mateo, 33 years of dust and sun etched into him, sat sharpening a knife with slow strokes, though his mind wandered elsewhere, back to the faces he had lost, the voices that no longer spoke his name. His cabin was small, more shadow than light, a place where loneliness had become as steady a companion as the prairie wind. When the knock came, soft yet desperate, it startled him more than a thunderclap might have. He rose, boots heavy on the wooden floor, and opened the door to find those 2 children staring up at him, hands trembling, voices breaking. "Mama's legs, they've been shattered, please save her." The boy's voice cracked like a dry twig underfoot, his words tumbling out in a rush. The girl nodded, eyes wide, clutching her brother as though the world might swallow them both if she let go. Mateo looked down at them, the weight of their plea cutting through the armor of his solitude. Without a word, he crouched, meeting their gaze, his rough hands reaching out gently, as if their small fingers were fragile bird wings. He did not question them, did not ask who they were or why fate had driven them to his door. He only said, in a voice low and steady, "Take me to her." The prairie stretched again before him as he followed their hurried steps, their small legs moving fast despite exhaustion, fear lending them speed. The evening deepened, the air cool and sharp, coyotes crying in the distance, as though they, too, bore witness to the unfolding tragedy. It was not far, but far enough that the journey pressed into his bones, and when they reached the wreck of a wagon, broken and half buried in the dirt, the sight stopped him cold. Elsa lay beneath a mass of timber, her dark hair matted against her face, her body twisted but still. Her eyes, though, were alive, clear, proud, and fighting to remain calm for the sake of the 2 children kneeling beside her. Her legs, pinned and shattered beneath the broken boards, bore the cruel mark of chance and misfortune. Mateo's heart, which had grown hard over years of silence, shifted then. He moved to her side, his voice quiet but firm. "I'll be gentle each step," he whispered, more to steady himself than her, though her eyes flickered with something like trust, fleeting but real. He studied the wreckage, searching for a way to free her without worsening the damage. Each plank he lifted, each rope he cut, was done with a care that belied the strength in his hands. Pain flashed in her eyes when he moved the final beam, but she did not cry out. Her strength was silence, her courage a shield that her children clung to. He fashioned a stretcher from what remained of the wagon, binding wood with rope, and carefully, with a patience that seemed infinite, he lifted her onto it. The children followed close, whispering prayers and voices, so small they seemed carried by the wind itself. The journey back to his cabin became a sacred procession, each step of Mateo's boots pressing into the earth with the weight of more than just her body. It was hope, fear, survival itself he carried. The prairie, vast and watching, seemed to hold its breath as they moved. When at last they reached the cabin, night had swallowed the sky whole, stars flickering like faint lanterns guiding them forward. Inside, by the flicker of candlelight, Mateo laid her gently upon his bed, his hands rough but tender, his movements steady despite the storm that stirred within him. He washed her wounds with rainwater gathered in a basin, tore his own shirt into strips for bandages, and bound her legs with care. She resisted showing weakness, her jaw clenched, her breath ragged but controlled. Only in the silence between his motions did her eyes betray the fear that threatened to break her. The children curled near the fire, clutching each other, their small bodies finally surrendering to exhaustion. In the quiet, Elsa spoke, her voice soft but edged with steel. "You should not waste your time. I've seen men walk away for less." Matteo paused, the rag in his hand dripping water into the basin. He did not answer immediately, for he had learned that words, like bullets, should only be fired when they mattered. At last he said, "You are not a waste." The words hung in the air, heavier than silence, and for a moment she turned her face away, as though unable to bear the weight of kindness. Through the night, he kept vigil. The cabin's shadows grew long, the fire crackled low, and the air carried the scent of earth and rain. In those hours, as he tended her, the distance between them narrowed. She asked why he lived alone, what ghost had driven him from town. He avoided her eyes at first, but slowly, as minutes turned to hours, he spoke of betrayal, of a love that had promised much but left him hollow, of how silence had become his only companion. She listened, her eyes softening, and in return, when he asked, she spoke of raising children alone, of abandonment and survival. Her voice quivered when she spoke of the man who had left her, but steadied when she spoke of Mo and Joy. The night wrapped them in quiet confessions, two souls exposing wounds not of flesh, but of heart. When dawn came, the cabin filled with pale light, and shadows retreated. For the first time in years, Matteo felt the weight of loneliness lift, even if only by a feather's measure. He saw her differently now, not as broken or ruined, but as brave, as unyielding as the desert sun. The children stirred awake, and life, fragile yet steady, filled the cabin. Days passed in a rhythm of healing. Matteo taught Joy how to scatter feed for the chickens, her laughter a sound that filled corners of the cabin long left empty. Mo often curled into his lap while he sharpened tools, small breaths rising and falling against him. Elsa, confined to bed, watched these moments, her heart caught between gratitude and shame. She struggled with her sense of worth, embarrassed to rely on a man she barely knew, but Matteo never showed impatience. Every request, every need, he met with a quiet steadiness, as though caring for her was the most natural act of his life. At night, he read aloud from an old book, his gravelly voice filling the cabin with stories that made the children dream and Elsa's eyes soften. When storms rolled across the plains, thunder cracking, the children cried, but Matteo calmed them with tales of stars, his voice steady as stone, teaching them courage. Elsa listened, her own fears soothed, her heart softening toward him like snow melting under spring sun. His hand brushed hers once while adjusting her blanket, the contact small but enough to send a quiet warmth through her. She saw the way his gaze lingered when he thought she slept, and for the first time in years, her dreams were not haunted by abandonment, but by the possibility of being safe. One evening, when the fire burned low and the night held its breath, Elsa attempted to stand. Her body betrayed her, her legs buckling, pain searing through her like lightning. She collapsed, sobbing, frustration breaking her proud silence. She cried out that she was a burden, that he should not waste his life on her, that he should leave her behind as others had. Her words cut sharper than any blade, echoing through the cabin. The children froze, wide-eyed in the doorway, unsure whether to cry or run to her. Matteo did neither. He walked slowly to her, his step steady, his face carved with resolve. He knelt beside her, took her trembling hand in his callous palm, and for the first time, his voice trembled. "Elsa," he said, her name heavy with meaning, "I don't see a burden. I see a woman braver than any I've known. You've carried pain no one should bear, and still your soul shines brighter than the desert sun. I don't want to walk away. I want to walk with you." The words, spoken with raw honesty, shattered the walls she had built around her heart. Her tears flowed freely, not from pain this time, but from being seen, truly seen, cherished in a way she had never known. She whispered through her sobs that no one had ever spoken to her that way, not even the man who once swore to love her. His hand tightened around hers, steady and sure, a promise without need for more words. The children crept closer, their small faces breaking into tentative smiles as they sensed the change in the air, something wholly blooming in that small cabin. Elsa wept openly, her body shaking, but her heart lightened with each tear. For the first time since the wagon's fall, since her world had shattered, she felt not broken, but whole, as though her pain had been carried not just by her, but by someone willing to shoulder it with her. Mateo held her, the weight of his silence finally broken, his confession not just of love, but of belonging. And in that moment, as the fire burned low and the prairie outside lay hushed beneath the stars, the cabin became more than wood and nails. It became sanctuary. It became home. Before you ride off, tell me where in the wide world you're watching from.